Action. Hey, so nice view, eh? Check it out. Beautiful Vancouver. I'm so blessed. But according to the technician who installed that 5G cellular base station over there, this view, it comes at a cost. And I can't actually be seated safely on my own balcony for more than 20 minutes before I've reached my maximum RF exposure for the day. RF stands for radio frequency. In this case, it can be emitted from an antenna just like that. I reiterate, according to the technician who installed that 5G cellular base station, I cannot be seated safely on my own balcony for more than 20 minutes before I've reached my maximum saturation of RF radio frequencies for the day. As a vegan, I don't care much for the smell of bacon sizzling, much less so if it was my own guts. You've probably heard by now about the international public controversy surrounding Huawei's rollout of 5G cellular base stations throughout the United States and its partners like Canada. While some of the challenges to these towers and the controversy surrounding it has concerned itself with privacy and security related concerns, these are in my view of the lesser concern to the public health and safety argument. The latter, the public health and safety argument, transcends geopolitics and petty nationalism. Being told to not buy from China is simply a subtle way of saying buy American. But by buying American or from any other manufacturer for that matter isn't a solution, because radiation doesn't have a national identity. There's a much larger issue with these towers. Installed right over my head, 83 inches from my temple to be exact, please get a close-up, just under 7 feet from my head, with zero public consultation. At a time when we're being told to lock ourselves in our own homes, we're banging pots and pans together every night in solidarity in this very fragile, important moment. But meanwhile, the construction of cell towers has continued unabated by those deemed essential workers. According to my property manager, everything is up to code. But I've read those codes, and by up to code, he means codes regulators came up with decades ago for short duration exposure, not 24/7 exposure like in a residential zone. There's a much larger issue with these towers, and what regulators and landlords are yet to acknowledge is the substantial body of evidence in the form of hundreds of peer-reviewed scientific papers identifying harmful effects of non-ionizing radiation as used in cellular communications equipment. I've provided over 900 complete abstracts of various papers at a link for you to check out, and scientists are publishing more every month. So what do we do once we've exhausted reason and diplomacy only to be met with asinine form letters reiterating generic corporate public relations talking points? Now this is where it gets interesting. You see, there's actually been a number of successful legal challenges to these towers in various jurisdictions around the world. Some countries have even halted their rollouts entirely, like Switzerland, which cited public health and safety arguments. But here in Canada, such challenges appear thus far to have been limited to bylaw compliance, zoning restrictions, loss in property value, permits, and related arguments. And while some of these challenges have met with success, ultimately all that strategy does is merely delay the inevitable as telecom giants and landlords eventually find ways of satisfying those requirements. For that reason, I am primarily focusing my legal strategy on the public health and safety arguments, which I believe, and the evidence strongly demonstrates, is an insurmountable challenge for industry to overcome. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Since this is an industry that's already tightly regulated, stakeholders can simply fall back on compliance with existing regulations in their defense. And while this is true, the fact is that tobacco products and manufacturers, which are also tightly regulated, are an industry whose customers, at the very least, have a choice on whether to expose themselves or not. I had zero choice in this exposure. And despite this, ultimately compliance with the black letter of the law has not been an adequate defense for tobacco giants, as evidenced with billions in findings of civil liability and class action settlements over the years. Further, the argument that Parliament and regulators can arbitrarily or unreasonably contract or legislate their way out on your behalf or my behalf to the safe enjoyment of my own home. This is my apartment. I live here. This is my balcony. I spend hours, countless hours. I have a garden here. This is not cool. The argument that they can contract their way out on my behalf to the safe enjoyment of my own home is dubious, to say the least. For that reason, and with your help, I will be filing suit and asking a judge in the process for an injunction in the Supreme Court of British Columbia just down the street from me. An injunction is a kind of court order that says someone has to stop doing something, and if they don't comply, they get hit with a costly sanction or even jail time. Consider that if we don't stand our ground now, it will eventually be too late. These 5G towers, in order for them to work, they need to be installed at intervals of approximately every second or third building, and that's basically everywhere. Experience has taught many of us that powerful corporations don't alter the behavior because it's the right thing to do. They do so only when the alternative is more expensive. Consider, this suit may well set a legal precedent. That means what we achieve with this injunction could potentially simplify the process for someone seeking a similar one later, or perhaps even as the basis to stop all 5G everywhere in Canada. I pledge to use your funds responsibly in this campaign and to take all the steps necessary for a skilled lawyer to draft and prosecute this lawsuit, and with the help of expert witnesses. I'm ready to get started, ASAP. Let's all make history, everyone. Thank you.